It is a beautiful day and another day of Dose of Did You Know? And with me today is Bill. Bill is like the man you want to know. And if you ever have a questions about Veterans Affairs, if he doesn't know, he will find it. So I am super excited to pick your brain, have a conversation, learn more about you, and then share you with the world. So Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi, Dani. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate it. So I'm a retired Coast Guard officer, 24 years active duty, and I started something called the Veterans Advice Hub, which is a YouTube channel where I collect the videos that I do, and I'll do topical, tip-oriented, short, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of them may be a little bit longer, but generally shorter videos that just do a quick hit on a particular topic important to veterans, like how do I submit a VA claim? How do I get a handicap placard? What's the difference between a service dog and an emotional support dog? Kind of real practical items. But I came to this because after I retired, I went through TAPS, which is the Transition Assistance Program that the military puts you through. And that was, in my estimation, kind of weak. Some things good, some things bad, but very little on VA disability and how to actually get started and move forward. So then when I got out, so I had that experience. Then I was teaching at a local college, and I kept running into veterans who had no idea about their post 9/11 GI Bill benefits. And, the school didn't really know. There was an evolution. It was a learning process for all of us.
Right.
And so then I was actually doing a lecture on the post 9/11 GI Bill, and a guy in the audience was a mortgage guy, and he said, "Hey, you got good delivery. If you ever wanted to do a change, I'd be interested to talk to you." So now in my full-time job, I'm basically a loan officer, and I help veterans get VA mortgages. So I have practical firsthand experience with VA disability, post 9/11 GI Bill, and the VA home loan. And by the way, I'm also a retiree, so I have my family on TRICARE, which is for veterans and their families, and I'm registered in VA Medical, which is really just for the veteran themselves. So I've hit kind of like the big four, and time again, people would ask me questions. I'm also a VFW post-service officer, which just means I'm a volunteer.
I see that, sporting it. Notice that right away.
Yeah. And that just means I'm a volunteer who helps other veterans connect with their benefits. So that's a long way of saying I get hit with the same types of things over and over and over again. And I said, well, maybe I ought to start recording some of this stuff so we have it. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so call me ignorant because I am just the Marine mom, or now the Marine veteran mom. And what is the difference? Is there a difference between what the Coast Guard when you get out than, like, say, the branches of the Marine, the Army? Is it a bit different, or is it handled the same?
No, it's all handled the same. There are 5 branches of the military. The Coast Guard is one of them. Our service secretary is in the Department of Homeland Security. The Marine Corps service secretary is in the Department of Defense. We have some different rules and regulations in terms of authorities and what we can do. But in terms of being on par with the other, quote, military services, the Coast Guard is one of 5. There's 5. Coast Guard is one of 5. So when it comes to VA benefits, it's the same across any service. We all fall under the same system and have to deal with the same issues. And so the information is essentially applies to any veteran.
Okay. See, I learned. I will not say I know everything all the time, because that's a big fat lie. So when you got out, I mean, here you are, you're teaching, you're doing all of this service, and you just see this hole in the community. You talked a little bit about it, but what is the major hole that you're seeing right now? Like, you're close to me. We're just like maybe an hour and a half away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like sort of right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I'm terrible with, like, I've lived here for so long. I've lived here for 24 years. Born here, moved away, came back, and people are still like, so this is where I live. Do you know where that is? I'm like, no
Right.
idea. I'd go by directions of, you see that house with the lobster pots? Take a left. That's like the extent of my directions. But what do you see up in this area is the most, like the Boston kind of area that people are coming to you with?
Sure. So let's say the Merrimack Valley, Mass, New Hampshire border region. I have helped veterans from all over the country. Certainly through the YouTube channel. If you write a comment or you have a question and you post it, I will do my best to try and answer you, or at least provide you with some resource.
Right.
I've had people reach out to me on Facebook. All of fine. The point I want to get across is essentially it's the same system across the country, so it doesn't really matter where you are. The differences in region and by, am I in Massachusetts, am I in New Hampshire, wherever I am, is the local nonprofit organizations that also provide veteran support. So let me back up just one quick second. The real reason that I wanted to get this started was because I want veterans to be able to find out what their earned benefits actually are. A bunch of veterans are going to find out, if they don't pay attention to it, their post 9/11 GI Bill benefits are going to expire. If you were in the service from January 2013 onward, so 2013 was not that long ago. If you were
Right.
2013 onward, then you fall under the forever GI Bill, and those benefits are in perpetuity. And they made some other changes too, but the bottom line is the Congress wrote a law that said January 2013 onward, there's no sunset clause for your GI Bill benefits. But I got out in 2011, and we're pushing 2020 now, right? My GI Bill benefits, which thank God I used one of the best features in it. I transferred my benefits to my children before I got out, which is another thing they don't tell you. You have to do it while you're in. You cannot do it once you retire or leave. You have to do it while you're in active duty. Right.
Yeah.
But so if you're in the earlier version of the post 9/11 GI Bill, which is a fantastic benefit, there's a 15-year sunset clause. So if you got out, 2001, 2002, 2005, right? We're in 2020. That's 15 years. If you haven't actually used your benefit, you've lost the opportunity to do it.
So I have a question. I got to stop because I got to get this question out. So hold on to whatever you're thinking. Yep. Don't forget that. One thing, Brian is watching. Brian, I see you're here. Thank you for shouting out. Brian, if you have a question, here is the time to ask. But what if while you were serving, you didn't have children, you're not married, but eventually you will have children and you want to pass it down? Can you pass it down to a fictitious child in the future?
No, because they have to be an actual dependent logged in, and they need to be in DEERS, which is like the automated admin personnel system where your dependent information is captured. Now, so as a retiree, I can go to a base and change something in DEERS and update something or whatever. But if I didn't actually make the connection while I was on active duty, and by the way, I was a career guy, so I didn't have some of the restrictions. If you're a mid-career military person, and even if you're thinking ahead, I'm going to do a full 20, whatever, the ability to transfer the benefit is considered an incentive to stay in. So it's not automatic. You actually have to apply for it, and it has to be approved. And if you're early enough in your career, you actually have to obligate additional time. Now, for me, I was already past all that. I was clearly a lifer. They weren't going to be able to squeeze any more time out of me. I was already committed. So, I met the requirements just through having time. But like if you had 6 years in, I think the requirement, don't quote me, it's either 4 or 6 more years that you have to commit to be eligible to transfer that benefit. So it's a fantastic. So the takeaway is know and understand what your benefits are, and make sure you, particularly if there are limits or restrictions on them. I'll give you another one that people get really pissed off at. They think VA medical is free for everyone, and it's just something that you get. Well, that's not true. I mean, it's partially true. The military talks about it that way, but in actuality, how they execute it is there's not a completely enough capability to go around for every veteran. So there's a tiered system. It's a priority system. There's 9 different categories, and if you make a good living and you're not particularly unhealthy, which is great, and you don't have any service-connected disabilities, you're going to be in the lowest tier. So that means they get to the lowest priority. They call them priority groups. The lowest priority, that means they get to you when they get to you. So yeah, on paper you have VA medical, but now if you're a service-connected veteran with traumatic issues that you really need medical care, or you're below the poverty line, and you have those other issues, like you're in real need, you're up at the top of the list, and you get the services you need. And most of us fall somewhere in the middle. But I mean, I've had the discussion with veterans who ended up leaving the service in good circumstances and good health, and like on principle, they're annoyed that they don't have easy access to it. I said, well, you don't need it. What are you complaining about? But the real answer is it's a tiered system that you need to learn about in order to maximize and use. So those are the type of nuances that I try and address in videos.
There's so many things like this. I'm actually going to post in my mom's group, because when our sons entered and our daughters entered, they're young, they're teenage, like basically just out of teenager, 18, 19 years old. They don't know this. So I took it upon myself to educate myself the best I could, but that was like, I know this much of it. So this is a great resource for that. But I have a lot of questions that I want to get, because this is an actual question that I want to know the answer to in your expertise opinion, because I went and got my life insurance license because as I was traveling the country, I found that there was, oh my God, there was such a hole. They didn't have life insurance. And so like Brian has a question. What life insurance is so hard to get underwritten when you have these pre-existing conditions that majority of veterans have. So is there something in the VA system or something that is out there that you're not going through the normal underwriting process that most companies have for veterans to get life insurance once they didn't sign the paper and carry on, their life insurance that they had active?
I hear you. There's kind of 2 different answers to that question, depending on whether you are a retiree or whether you were a quote standard veteran, did your time and got out. If you're a standard veteran who did their time and then got out, regardless, assuming honorable discharge, all that, whatever those conditions are, in terms of life insurance for you, you're on the market. There's really nothing just for Joe Bag of Donuts veteran to slide into. If you're a retiree, then you can transition your veterans group, your service members group life insurance, which you had on active duty, the benefits up to $400,000. So, kind of whatever you signed up for. I think that there was a small fee that they just used, I'm sure I had an allotment for it. I never saw it, never thought about it. And then suddenly I'm retired and now I need life insurance. So if you're a retiree, you can transition that service members group life insurance into something called veterans group life insurance. And the benefit to that program, specific for retirees, is there's no medical screening to become eligible for the insurance. So I have service-connected disabilities. I'm a guy who I didn't want to go try and get this on the market with a medical exam. I'd been paying through the nose. So I transitioned to veterans group life insurance. So the good thing is there's no medical screening. The bad part of it is early on, it's relatively cheap and it's competitive. As you get older, the premiums go up. And then at some point, it becomes not such a good deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So sorry, Brian. I did my best. I'm still, don't you worry. I still got your back, Brian. We're going to figure it out. Like
Right.
if there's a loophole out there, Dani Rocco is going to find it and hook everybody up. But Skip says, hey, out there, he is a great guy to know. And Heather, it's a slippery slope of unknown regulations to access benefits.
Yes.
This is a company that is so needed in consulting service for active duty and veterans to successfully receive and use the benefits they deserve. Yes. And
Right.
I really think your service is for people that are active. I think we need to
yeah.
moms
Absolutely.
and the dads.
Can I just clarify? I'm not a company. I'm not anything. I'm a guy. I've got a YouTube channel. That's all I do.
But it's actually, you're doing a huge service. And I really, I knew about you before, but until we were talking, I didn't realize, like, oh my gosh, I got to get you your service, your gift to the world, to the people, the wives, the mothers,
yeah, absolutely,
the children, the adult children, cousins, friends, because those are the ones that are going to see outside of what the active duty, servicemen and women are going through. At least that's my opinion for my own son and the younger.
Right. And to be honest with you, when you're in, you kind of process a lot of the stuff intuitively, and military spouses, and families, I love them. They kind of assimilate a lot of the stuff, but they don't necessarily live it, so they don't understand maybe all the little nuances. And a lot of times their perspective is different. So the spouse is going to have a different question than the veteran. And you're right. You need kind of both segments to really have a comprehensive answer. Let me just address something you said, the military transition piece. So not to hawk my YouTube channel, Veterans Advice Hub, you can Google it. Right on there, I did a video on the military to veteran transition. I did a lecture for a bunch of National Guard, recruiting command folks, like 60 people at a recruiting command, monthly training. All right, Bill's coming in, and I gave a lecture on, all right, hey, look, when you're getting out, here's what you got to do. 2 takeaways. Number 1, while you're in, take advantage of tuition assistance. That sometimes it gets funded, sometimes it doesn't. Use it as often and as much as you possibly can, because it's basically free education, free money. The other thing, 2 things really: make a copy of your medical record. Absolutely do that while you're in, even if you have to stand at the copier. And they're going to say, "Oh, we don't do that," or we will do it, and then it'll get put on the to-do list and doesn't happen. You got to be a jerk about it. Get a copy of your medical record before you leave, because you're going to need that if you ever want to put in a VA disability claim. And rather than go to the archive to try and get it, have it in your hand, much easier. And about a year out, whether you're going to stay in or get out. Once you've decided you're going to get out, go to sick call. Complain about everything that legitimately bothers you. Don't make stuff up. But if your foot hurts and your foot has hurt for 3 months and you just sucked it up and walked around with half a limp, shame on you. Go talk to the corpsman. Go talk to the medical people. Get this stuff documented. You don't even have to know what it is. I'm rated for arthritis in my ankles, which I have, because throughout my career, I periodically would complain about ankle pain. And they would never diagnose us. They just made a notation. Bill's complaining again about the ankle. Right. Okay. Well, when the doctors look at it from the VA and try and determine service connection, there's something concrete in there that they can go back to. So then when they look at the x-ray and go, oh, yeah, he's got arthritis. He's been complaining about this for 7 years. So that's obviously service connected, right? Yeah. Those are the types of things. I tell people, make it easy for the VA to say yes. So the other thing with your medical record, mine was that thick. They don't need all of it. I pulled out and organized and each individual thing. So each item I claimed, I had every piece of paper about that item, but not every time I had the sniffles or every time I went to go something else. Just those things that talked about, this issue or that issue, made it all simple and easy. The guy who did my it's called a compensation and pension examination. The guy who did that exam was like, "Wow, did you put this together?" And I said, "Yep." He goes, "Oh, this is going to be easy." Right. It's going to be easy.
Make it simple, not confusing. Jim has a question, so I'm going to read it here. He says, our OTH vets are left to fend for themselves largely. What can we do to help them? Some get VA care, many others don't. Maybe no answer now, but what do you think we can do? I believe our suicide problem is much bigger because of those OTH discharges and are not helped or tracked.
That is, well, that's one of the issues that I think the VA falls down the most. You'll hear me talk very positively about the VA. My experience was good. I think the resources available generally are helpful. They help thousands and thousands and thousands of veterans. Having said that, I'm not a shill for the VA. Screw those guys. They screw up just as much as they help sometimes. And I think this in particular is an area where they could do a lot better. So other than honorable discharges, most of the VA benefits are tied to some amount of time in service, particularly for disability, some kind of incident or connection with your service, and then the character of your discharge. So if you got an OTH and you feel like you were kind of railroaded and kicked out the door a little bit, maybe you have grounds to get that reviewed. So there is a process to review the character of your discharge. That's what it's called, the character of your discharge. You can get that reviewed and upgraded if you meet the criteria, because sometimes they make a mistake. Okay, fine. Those will be easy to fix. If you're truly a person who had issues, whatever the cause, and you got booted out with something other than honorable, you're going to have to fight to kind of make that connection. And you're going to have to engage with the medical community, and then essentially make a case to get that discharge recharacterized. Because the one thing that is going to knock you out of the box, either you meet. It's very simple. You either meet or you don't meet the requirements. If you don't meet the requirements on paper, then there's no way you're going to get the benefit. It's just that simple, which is sad to say. So I don't want to be negative on that. That like it's in my mind, what I just said is gray. It's not. It's black and white in terms of do you meet yes or no. Define yes, define no. All right. Well, I think there is wiggle room, but you have to do the research. You have to. I honestly think, for most people, vast majority of people, there's no need to get the lawyers involved. But when you're talking about a complicated review of your character of discharge where you think you have cause and the VA doesn't agree with you, then you're going to have to find a way to convince them. And honestly, I think most people can put in a VA disability claim on their own just fine. Or you can go to the website, figure out how to do it, watch one of my videos. You go, oh, okay, fill out the form, and you access your benefits. Most of the time, that's how it works. For these complicated things, and I don't recommend or endorse any particular attorney. I would say this is one of the few times where it might be worth getting an attorney involved. Now, having said that, there are free pro bono resources available for veterans to do exactly what I talked about. There are law firms and attorneys that will take veteran cases pro bono, which means free, to help with VA disability and character of discharge type cases. The VA has a resource. Here's all the free companies, right? I mean, so it's in there. You just got to figure out how to do it. The other thing I would say, particularly sometimes if you have an OTH situation, it's for a reason. And maybe you, the veteran, you just can't get it together enough to sit there and figure it out. Or maybe you're an older person, you're not computer savvy, you can't hear anymore, but you got to find out how to get hearing aids from the VA. They understand that. You can have someone else advocate for you.
Right.
And this is where I think the veteran service organizations, like the VFW, DAV, pick your agency, pick your organization, are a good resource because they have. So I'm a volunteer. I'm a veteran service officer at my post. That just means I put my hand up and I took my picture and put it on the wall. This VFW, but also these other organizations, we have a state VSO, veteran service officer for the state of Massachusetts. He's a paid professional. That's what he does every day. He's certified by the VA. His staff is certified by the VA. His email address says va.gov, even though he's an employee of VFW. So he has access. He helped me do my claim. He could get into my medical record online if there was a problem.
Oh, that's another plug to join these VFWs, everybody. I did not know that about that.
Right. Well, a lot of the national level organizations have things like that. So it's like anything else. Some guys are really good. Some guys, frankly, are horrible. You don't abdicate responsibility for your own claim or your own process or your own issue. You're looking for someone to help you. If you start with a DAV and you go, this guy is just not getting it, or this gal is not doing what I need, then drop them and go to some other organization. You might have to start over, but until you get the help you need, you're not going to make any headway.
Right. I have one more question, and we've gone over a bit, but your brain is being picked here. So Brian asks, and all of this is service connected. How can you tell if your VA compensation is P&T? I'm 100% going on 2 years.
P&T just basically means that it's a permanent rating, and that's a little bit of a misnomer because I just did a video on VA disability rating reexaminations, kind of what triggers them, when they do them. So in your VA documentation, they call it the decision memo. In the decision memo that says, hey, we got your claim, we're giving you this, we're giving you that, we deny this, and and then the rating percentage, that's the decision memo. In there, it should say whether or not it's subject to routine future exam, RFE, which means every 2, 3, 5 years they're going to look at it again, or whether it's P&T. I'm sorry, I can't remember what the T stands for, but permanent, essentially. That's a designation. Having said all that, people think that means I never get looked at again. No, it means that they are probably not going to look at you again. They reserve the right to look at you anytime they want, really. And so what triggers them to relook at something, even if it is P&T? If you claim something else, or you put in for an increase on something, that's going to trigger a new comp and pen exam. Any comp and pen exam can look at any and all of your disabilities. Now, typically what happens, the VA is so overwhelmed, they farm these out to companies that do it for them. And, that company has no incentive to do you a head to toe exam. They got contracted to, so I'll use myself for an example. The company was VES. I forget what that stands for, but it's a national company. A lot of veterans get exams done by them. And it was specifically for the arthritis in my ankles. And, whoever heard of arthritis getting better, but okay, whatever. Out of the blue, I get a letter. Says, hey, you've been scheduled. And what do you mean I've been scheduled? Nobody talked to me. Yeah, right. They don't talk to you. They send you a letter, and they put a date on the table, and it's up to you to reconnect with them and adjust if needed, or set up the details of the visit, which is what I did. Mm-hmm. And I asked them specifically, what are you looking for? And they said my ankles. Okay, fine. And I won't go into the details of like the video, but So his question was about, P&T. What does that mean? When can they look at you again? So they can look at you if you request an increase on something or you put in something new. Other times when they stop looking at a thing, if it truly is permanent, like loss of a limb, no reason to check that again. I got a knee replacement. That's not going anywhere. They're never going to have to look at that knee again. If you're over 55, typically you're much lower priority to look at than if you're a younger person, where you might actually make improvements. And then lastly, it's considered stable. I'm using air quotes, stable, if it's been more than 20 years with the same rating.
Okay. And Brian said T is total. So
yeah, permanent and total, right? Sorry. Yeah, of course.
So Brian, you're not 55. You still got a couple, more years on you before that. But
so let me jump in. The horrible situation. This, will I trigger a re-exam of something else if I put in an increase? Puts veterans, particularly older veterans, where this income has become part of their needed day-to-day income. Right. I feel worse, but I'm afraid to request an increase on something that I'm legitimately service connected for, because I don't want them to look at everything else. I've heard horror stories where they're going to lower my rate and I'm going to get less money. I know two different older gentlemen, older Vietnam era veterans, who have that exact same scenario, and I cannot convince them to do it because they're afraid that the answer is going to be no and they're going to lose money.
Yeah, that goes into multiple different things with people not going into the VA system. That exact kind of statement. And Travis is on here. He's got to check his, because it's been over 6 months. But Travis, Bill is in Ipswich, and I was telling him about you earlier. So I want to connect you two. So I'm connecting you two right now. Travis, okay. You guys are close together. I think it'd be a good combination. All right, Bill, Bill is going to be back. He's going to also be on Devoted to a Soldier resource panel. That's Thursdays at 6 p.m. We're going to have another Veterans Affair to VA people that work in the VA this Thursday. So this was like perfect. You gave so much. If you aren't subscribed to his channel, you need to be, because I feel like you have, and I love that they're short videos. My attention span's very short. So thank you for making them short on your channel.
Right. And I always try and provide the actual resource or the place where I'm saying what the requirements are, and I'll put the VA link to that page that discusses it.
Oh, so you make it so simple. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And now, for my ending question right now, today, Bill, as you sit here, tell me the first thing that comes to your mind, because that is what I believe is your truth. What does love mean to you?
Well, the sad part is the first thing that really popped into my head was, boy, I love my dog. I mean, the wife and kids are nice too, but let's face it.
I think that is that unconditional. That goes with, right? It's that unconditional feeling that you feel. You can never piss off your dog. No matter how much you try, they still love you, you know? They just look at you and they're like, oh, I didn't mean to, whatever it was. I didn't mean to eat your, $400 stilettos. But not for you. You don't have that.
Right.
That's my instinct for that. Bill, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day and sharing all your value with us. And everybody out there listening, thank you for interacting. I learned so much through you, which is a blessing. And remember, love hard, love pure, and love proactive. And until next time, we will see you.